myself, I did B in production engineering. I started my career with the sales for the pharma machinery. Since last 26 years, I am into pharma machinery.
Okay. But you have done your engineering in production, which is very good. So, आपका most of these things what we talk will be more or less. You must have done some, at least refreshing course kind of thing. What you are doing now. Or what about Titi?
Good evening, sir. As you know my name is Sati Patel. I completed my BTech in 2020 with the branch biotechnology, sir. And currently I'm working in a marketing firm as an assistant.
Okay, working in marketing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And which college?
Sir, Invertis University, Bareilly, Uttar Pradesh.
Oh, acha. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And yes, Krishna.
Sir, good evening. I am Krishna Mistry. I have completed BCom in Vinarbar South Gujarat University. I am currently Indofi Industries Limited. I am a purchaser.
You are in purchase. Okay. In what items?
Sorry?
No, what is your company doing?
Indofi Industries Limited.
Indo?
Indofi Industries Limited, the H.
This is the Birla Copper.
Birla Copper.
No, sorry, sir. Indofi Industries Limited.
Indofil.
The H. Indofil. Yeah, right.
Okay. So all are engineers, actually. Very good. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So far, Anka, Rao. Yes. Can you just switch on your video and Anka, can you introduce yourself? Yeah. I think you're on mute. No, you're on mute, Anka.
Now, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Now.
Hi, Sukumar sir. This is Shankar. I am working as a senior software engineer at CTS. So I just wanted to understand how the operations will be working in the industry and go further.
Acha, your background is you're an engineer?
Sorry?
What's your qualification?
I have done my MCA.
MCA, okay. From
Vasvi College of Engineering, Hyderabad.
MCA from Hyderabad. And where are you based now?
I am from AP, Andhra Pradesh.
No, you're working currently in AP?
Yeah, I am work from home actually from last 2 years.
Okay.
But my work location is Hyderabad itself.
Hyderabad, okay.
Yeah.
Hyderabad. Good. And yes, now we can. Yes, I think we'll not wait any longer. We are. Somebody joins, fine. Okay, my name is Sukumar Rangachari. I am also an engineer. I did my BTech in electronics from IIT Kharagpur. I have worked in Bombay in sales and marketing, then did an MBA from IIM Bangalore, and again worked for some corporates before I started on my own in 1982. Till then I was in Bombay. Since 1982, I have been on my own. I started, my first venture was in manufacturing of electronic components. In fact, Divyang Saab, one of my locations at that time, I was looking at Gandhinagar because that Gandhinagar industrial area was coming up at that time, yes. And but then finally decided on Mysore because it was also giving a lot of incentives. The Karnataka government was giving a lot of incentives at that time here to start new industries. So we came here. I've been in manufacturing since then. I'm also a founder director of a software company So I understand software to some extent. I myself don't code, of course, Anka, but yes, I do understand all the processes in software. For more than 22 years now, been this software company. It's a US-based company. We are working in life sciences, basically. That's one of the areas. I have many hats. Of course, I'm associated with some of the hospitals in capacity of a trustees in some places. I've handled schools, headed schools, and I'm on the board of a few companies, including DPL Limited, which is one of the leading companies. I'm on the board in that company, plus 3 other companies. I like to teach, which I've been doing for the last 20, 25 years. But of course, nowadays, most are online. And so that's some way of giving back to people like you who want to learn. Okay. Rules is you normally keep your this thing in mute. You can keep the video on, but keep the volume in mute, just because sometimes your noise from the room carries through, it will disturb others. That's the only reason. And when you want to speak, of course, you unmute, and then you can, whenever you want to ask for a question. Don't feel shy. You don't have to wait for I need to finish something and say, can be any questions? You can ask anything in between. It can be interactive. Okay. Although, of course, I'll be taking you through some theoretical slides. It doesn't mean that ends there. You can ask questions from your own personal experience, or what you want to get clarified. Okay. I am okay with Hindi, just to give you a thing, but I'm not very good in Hindi. Okay, although I've been, Hindi bhi Bombay Hindi hai, not the what Neeraj Saab ka, Lucknowi Hindi to nahi hai. So, but I understand fully, so you can ask questions even in your vernacular. It's a medium of instruction, need not be a thing for learning. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Learning is more important than English. English is secondary. Okay, so you can ask questions in any of that. Okay, so I will go ahead with the topic for the day, which is operations management. Yesterday, of course, Rekha ma'am couldn't take. In fact, Rekha and me were batchmates in IIM Bangalore. We were not in the same class. Because she did her BSc, I did my BTech at the same time. We passed it around the same time, and that's how I know her, and she knows me. Kind of thing. And I agreed to do this program from Mysore because I could connect with whatever she are doing, So we alternate on this course, and that's how it is. I will straight away share my screen. Okay. Yes. So today we'll be talking on the introduction to operations management. One particular, I think, class you already had on operations management, during the basics course, but then this will be a little different from that. And then a topic on productivity, why productivity is very important in operations. Okay, I will get into the slideshow mode. Yes, you can see the screen now. If you need not say, you can just say thumbs up, whenever you want to raise your hand. Yes, just seeing the thing, just say a thumbs up. Okay, since you're on mute, just say thumbs up. That's enough. Okay, that's easier, Yes, I know that you are watching, and that's good. Okay, so the objectives of this is what do you understand by the term operations management? And what is the status of manufacturing and service industries in India, emerging opportunities from operations management? Incidentally, most of the slides and also the material is taken from a book on operations management by B. Mahadevan of IIM Bangalore. Of course, since I am from IIM Bangalore, I also like to use his material because he is quite thorough in what on this subject. Okay, and especially in the Indian context. So can principles of operations management be applied to both manufacturing and service? This is extremely important. People usually, at least when we were doing such program, it used to be called production management. And then later on, of course, it gradually changed to operations management because the principles of operations are more or less similar in both manufacturing and service, or a combination of manufacturing and service. It comes from the basic thing that there is an input and there is a desired output, and then you need to create systems and to evolve the input to the output. How we do that and what all we do that during that process comes in within operations management. Role of operations in an organization, key components of operations management system and their interactions. Okay, so when the three major components in any economy are manufacturing, services, and agriculture are the main economic activities. And of course, in Indian societies, the agriculture plays a great role. And more importance is now given to value-added agriculture, and technology in agriculture is increasing. A lot of startups are doing work in the field of improving the yield and converting products into agriculture, and helping the agriculturists. Services, yes, people like Anka, myself, we are all into services in some way. In the sense that software as a service, as a service, is something is worldwide, and India is almost on top when it comes to software. Apart from software, of course, we have banking and finance, which is a great big sector which a lot of people are in, and things like hotels, hospitality, and all these, a combination of products and services which are there. Whereas things like banking, insurance are purely services-based organization. Manufacturing, of course, you can right from pins to rockets, things are manufactured, and then there is a technology in whether you are manufacturing pins or whether you are manufacturing rockets. Sometimes you say it is not rocket science. It is rocket science. Everything is rocket science. Even if you're making a pin, I would say. So in India, manufacture and service sector form about 75% of the gross domestic product. This must be a little more only now than what these figures are a little old, but still in the last 10 years, services have grown from 40% to 51%. We are looking forward to a lot more input or contribution from manufacturing in our GDP. As you know, the current government and especially the Prime Minister is pushing for, especially the COVID has taught us a lot of lessons that we can't be relying on countries, and more so China. And then so we need to start making things on our own. And especially if we have seen even something like a simple smartphone, which earlier almost 90% was being imported. Now, practically most of the smartphones are being made in the country. You may say that, yes, all the components in the smartphones are not being made, but at least the end product is being made. And once the end product is made, slowly, the components which go into the end products will also start getting made. This is exactly what happened in the two-wheeler segment in the automobile industry. And we are the world's largest manufacturers of two-wheelers in the world, and slowly it caught on to the four-wheelers, and we have almost practically every single brand in the world in our country right now being made here. So hence managing manufacturing and service operations are important in increasing their productivity. Yes, this is something which has really kicked up the need for manufacturing, more so from the being self-sufficient. It was kicked in the parliament on 12th May 2020, especially in the midst of the COVID. Our Prime Minister talked about the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, giving a comprehensive package of 50,000 lakh, 20,000 lakh crore, which is equivalent to almost 10% of the India's GDP. And during our time, say about 50 years back or 40 years back, when I started my manufacturing, we used to talk about import substitution, as a kind of thing. Of course, at that time it was more important because the import duty on products was very high. We had sometimes there are products which were having up to 250% import duty. Those kind of. So they helped in indigenizing some of the things, like even the electronic components which we were making. But we still, as a country, we still don't produce semiconductors. If you know that recently the government has approved one semiconductor scheme, and it is coming up in Mysore, incidentally, right? It is some 52,000 crores with a package for putting up a semiconductor plant in Mysore, has been approved with an Israeli company, and this will be probably one of the first one to come up. Of course, why Mysore? There are many reasons for that. One of the prime requirements is water, and then we have water in plenty. And of course, we, especially coming from the Kaveri, we are in the starting point of Kaveri here. And so perennially we have water, we supply our water flows into Tamil Nadu, and then finally it goes to the sea from there. And the water goes to Bangalore, was everywhere else. So water is in plenty, and then that's one of the key requirements. Apart from that, of course, a lot of electronics and electronics based manufacturing is in and around Bangalore, Bangalore and Mysore. And defense establishments are also around here. So it was quite logical that the semiconductor plant will come here. Yeah. So the manufacturing is picking up, although I'm not very happy with the pace at which it is picking up. Since I'm closely involved with this, because I was also a president of the Confederation of Indian Industries, if you've heard of CII, yeah, because we promote industry in the country, and nowhere near China, but it is coming up in almost all sectors. Sectors like pharmaceuticals, we are on the top. We are one of the largest exporters of pharma and pharma products to the world. In fact, the recent COVID has shown that we were the producers of two vaccines. Not only that, the entire right from basic formulations to finished products. And Gujarat is probably one of the largest producers of pharma, and with the pharma companies around there. The Vapi, that belt, the full up to Ahmedabad, all the Vapi to Ahmedabad, all the belt of pharma companies there. So manufacturing is there in a big way, but not in all parts of the country. There are in a few places which is almost absent, and that is where we need to concentrate to get through. Basically, what happens? Manufacturing converts inputs into products which are useful to the customer, like automobiles, electronic goods, etc. What matters is from what stage to what stage the goods are produced. Typically, I'll say, of course, some of these are not there in the slide, and some of them are, which you need to understand that any manufacturing has a minimum of 4 stages in production. When you say 4 stages or tiers, as you can see, give you an example in electronics, because something which I know, and I could take the example of automobile. What you see on the end of the thing is like in electronic goods, let's say you're seeing a smartphone in your hand, or a wristwatch, or you are seeing a TV in front of you, or a home theater. In automobile, of course, there were either a 2-wheeler or a 4-wheeler you drive. Now, to make this, say, automobile, when a manufacturer is not making everything right from the basic metal which is there used in the to make the chassis. No, he doesn't. He gets them in the form of a raw material and component, and in fact more of as components, like it could be a brake assembly, it could be a gear assembly. An engine is not made by the manufacturer of the car, it is made by somebody else. In fact, incidentally, Fiat makes most of the engines, and so we have different companies from the country and across the world making those components which go into the final assembly of the automobile. Generally, when you say automobile, it's a final assembly, what you see an assembly line which happens. Now, to make these components, again, there are the sub-assemblies are components which go into that. It could be the nuts and bolts, it could be valves, it could be many of these which are components which gets into the sub-assembly, it then gets into the final assembly of the final product. Now, to make these components, you need some basic material in the form of steel. It can be, various other precious metals. It could be, in case of pharma, it could be some basic chemicals which are there, which needs to be refined to a certain, to a particular IP, as they call, the pharmacopoeia, Indian pharmacopoeia, there's purity standards and things like that. So you have a basic raw material, which invariably, if you see, all raw materials come from the earth. It is like the classic saying, from dust to dust. So you see, everything comes from the earth and goes back to earth. So the basic raw materials in any form is coming from the earth in the form of either it is an agricultural product or it comes from chemicals, materials, petroleum, anything for that matter. So from that, a first stage of production is a refined version of the raw material, like in the case of a steel, from iron ore to basic steel, which is there, or a steel grade, which is produced, or a copper grade. And from there, it is a component and then a sub-assembly and then gets into your final product. Keep that in mind that anything has at least minimum 4 stages. That's which I'm trying to drive you at. A service organization addresses the requirements of its customers using, so like the manufacturing is what it is. In a service organization, it addresses the requirements of its customers using a service delivery systems. One of the basic difference between a manufacturing and service is that in a service organization, the customer is closer to the delivery point of the service. Usually, and another thing is like today, when we talk about a product means either a physical product or it could be a product in the form of a service or a combination of both. We still call that a product. Like like even sometimes in the TV, you must be seeing that insurance company is talking, we have various products. It's not the, the package which he gives, that is not the product. When he says a product, it means the scheme of that particular insurance that he calls as a product. So like in case of hotels of course, there is a physical delivery system. You are going to a hotel, you are staying there in a hotel, you are eating there in a hotel. And similarly, in a hospital, hospital cannot work from home, like Anka is doing, right? You have to go to the hospital, except that maybe for giving an injection or taking the sample, they may send somebody home. But otherwise, you have to get to a hospital if something has to be done, of course. Unless you're too big, then you can set up a ICU inside your own home, and you can pay for it, right? So we have the service, the delivery system is close to the customer. Yeah, that's very important. Most organizations have a mix of both. That is, there is a physical product involved, and then there is a service component involved, and there is a mix of both. Operations management is defined as one in which several activities are performed to transform a set of inputs into a useful output, useful, tangible, meaningful, creating value to the customer, and have an experience to the customer, a positive experience to the customer. That is what ultimately we are doing when we create a system of activities, right? Using a transformation process. So operations management is a systematic approach to address all the issues pertaining to the transformation process that converts some inputs. There are various inputs which comes to a place where it is transformed into or through a set of activities or processes, as we call them processes. We don't call them procedures, we call them processes. There is a difference between processes and procedures. Of course, it may be synonymous, but then it's better to call them processes. Into output that are useful and could fetch revenue to the organization. Why does he say could? Because if it is a government which is giving a service, which for which you don't pay, let us say, there is no revenue involved in that. That's why the word used is could for a fetch revenue to the organization. It should fetch, if I have to put that, it should fetch satisfaction to the customer. Although it is not written there in the book, what is important is to provide customer satisfaction. In fact, the best way of deeming operations is that it should provide customer satisfaction at a surplus, the surplus in the form of money, in the form of goodwill, in the form of anything, So could fetch revenue to the organization. Salient aspects of operations, a systematic approach using scientific tools and techniques and solution methodologies to analyze problems. In creating any process or procedures, there are problems, and that is why we are there as management, to understand those problems, identify those problems, analyze the problems, create possible solutions, weigh the outcome of these possible solutions, choose the best option which we think, and then make a decision to implement those changes into the system or the process. So it is a systematic process for which we use certain scientific tools and techniques. Addressing several issues varying in terms of the time horizon, nature of decisions, design and operational control issues in the transformation process. If you've seen what is the basic function of a management: planning, organizing, development, and control. See, PODC, which is the basic function, so there is a planning stage, there is a organizing stage, and decision stage, and then a control stage, which is there. So focusing on keeping cost to the minimum. Operations is the only place in the framework of the various other functions in the organization. Of course, there are others also, like HR is also a cost. You either have a cost center or a profit center. Now, I can take your debate whether operations is creating profit or marketing is creating profit. In fact, we can have a debate, very, you can say a classical debate, saying that which is creating profit. Sometimes the operations fellow will say, sorry, the marketing fellow will say that I am the one who I'm getting the best price for the product. And because of me getting a good price for the product, the organization is making profit. Well, the operations person or the person in charge, he can say that, yes, you may get the best price, but then if my operations are not efficient, right? If my resources are not used efficiently, then I will eat away all the profits which you try to generate in terms of the price. Contrary, conversely, you see the price what you can get for a product is determined by the market, the competition, and many other factors. Many a times it is controlled by the government also. Just like, let us say, in petroleum products, the price is controlled by the government. In many of the even drug markets, the prices of drugs are controlled. In a free market, again, you cannot price something fancy price what you want to get. It is determined by the market. No, how much the market is willing to pay. Once that is decided, it is how much you can save on costs, right from the material wastage to the process using the correct technologies, the efficiency in operations in converting it, which is what we'll be talking in the second part of the class today on productivity. So all on using the least number of manpower resources, like let us say Anka, when he's giving a quote to a customer on thing, you're talking about a man-hour cost, right? This is what you can put.
Yeah.
So you can't give any price. You will say $10 per hour means it's $10 per hour. Okay. Now you have to make your operations more effective and efficient to ensure that you deliver, let's say, within $8 per hour, because then the $2 is what is your profit. But if your resources do not work efficiently, instead of $10, they spend $12 to create the same output, then you actually incur a loss. So the price is determined by the customer, but the cost of operations is what you manage within your own organization. And that is what is, again, operations management. Focusing to keep the costs to a minimum. Cost could be material cost, capital cost, technology cost, manpower costs, right? Everything. Okay. Yes, Anka. You raised a query.
So when we manage the operations or when we manage the team, so there might be some hikes or anything. So as you informed right now, there will be $10 per hour, suppose.
Yeah.
So which will took around, if I take a monthly salary of an employee, it will be around 50 to 60K, which I am providing.
Yeah.
So, but my the project is extending with the same amount of time and with the same amount of efforts in the operations, and as well as there is no change in the budget.
Yeah.
So we need to handle the situation of the employees, because they are also checking for a new hikes.
Yeah. See, basically, this is what the forces in any operations is that certain costs will go up. Your raw material costs in many cases are not in your control. Manpower costs has to go up because you'll have to keep paying more and more, if not for hike in salary for competitiveness, but at least to offset the dearness allowance in the like in case of thing. So the only way to compensate for that is to ensure that you are able to get more productivity with the manpower available, either by the person themselves or by automating your processes. Not fully automating. When you say automating, means there are various simple ways of automation. Like in software, a lot of quality tools are there to automate. Right. So in production, there are actually physical automations which take place. So you are making sure that the throughput or output is more and more for the same given input of material, manpower, and time. You see, so that is what we are constantly playing with. Why are the advanced countries more advanced countries? Because their labor productivity is very high. Like if you see an average Japanese or a German working or a US working, it's the reasons is also because they have better tools of production, which we don't have. Some of them, if you see the kind of tools which they use for production, and that is why we as operations managers should be constantly working. As it is not that the manpower is lazy or something like that. The person has to be provided with better tools and better equipped with better facilities, better training. There are many other things, many things which are involved into ensuring productivity of the manpower. Right, we'll be talking about all this. So develop a set of measures to assess performance of the system. Ultimately, what you measure is what you can improve. You see, that is what ultimately is the and continuously keep improving. Manufacturing in India is emerging as a manufacturing base of the world. Of course, we are nowhere near to China, but still we would like to be, because there is no way only software can help. But there is a limit to that. So ultimately, we are consuming goods. After all, 1/5 of the world population, we are consuming a lot of goods. And unless we start producing that and also export those goods to other places in the world, we'll never be competitive. Nature of issues, strength lies in good design and engineering. This is one place we are equal or better than in the world. Most of the semiconductor design is also coming from in India, incidentally. There are many companies, even who are, even Intel has their own setups in India, right? So abundant low-cost labor and technical manpower is available. Only problem is we have a lack of scale because we are still not looking at the global scale. Inadequate management skills. Of course, I won't say this in the last 20, 30 years because more and more management schools have come up and more management programs have come up like what you are doing. Once you understand these things and you are able to put to work, so that brings in efficiency and productivity in your operations in many ways. Little effort towards brand building. Of course, this is a common issue. Indian plants are 1/10 of the size of Chinese. Productivity is 35% of US. US productivity is high. And Chinese, of course, they use a lot of cheap labor, but still their productivity is much higher than our Indian productivity. Lead time for delivery is much higher because we have other problems in logistics. We have so many other issues which need to be taken up. In fact, if you see our roads infrastructure is being given a great push recently, if you've seen. And if you've heard our Minister for Highways and, our Nitin Gadkari Saab, he was telling, we still aren't using our waterways to an extent which we should be using. The cheapest logistics actually is in waterways, and we have not even gone anywhere near touching. And we have one of the excellent network of waterways within the country. Apart from, of course, the highways you are coming up, you can see the speed with which the highways are coming up all over the country. So that is one of the biggest costs for cause for delays in our country. India needs to hone its operations management skills. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we are conducting this today and across in many other places. In the services sector, there has been a very good growth. Of course, there are figures only I have here is up to 2004, but this must be 10 times that in currently. So although services are classified separately from manufacturing in the macroeconomic sense, from the perspective of operations, the separation is artificial because, as I said, it is both. Pure products and pure services are only two ends of a spectrum. In the next slide, you will see. Therefore, pure products, machines, automobiles, electronic products, all that is as a pure product. Some of the fast-moving commodities where there is a product and service go together, customized durable goods where you need constant service, and fast food in a eat-out joint because, like it's being produced and consumed at the same place, so there is an equal amount of the production and consumption. The high-quality restaurant meal where the service is more important than the product offered. Facilities maintenance where there is more service and less of materials used. Emergency maintenance services. Cyber cafes, whatever, consulting, legal tax consulting, Ayurvedic healing treatments, where hardly any material is used, but more of manpower. So there is a continuum between products and services. The basic difference is the tangibility in terms of services of performances and actions rather than objects. Therefore, having poor tangibility. You can't say what you have got, but the experience what you have got is what matters, So heterogeneity, high variability in the operations systems performance. There is a degree of customer contact is very high. Services cannot be inventory. This is the most important thing in service. That in manufacturing, if there is going to be a demand, let us say during Diwali, that everybody's burst crackers. We all know that. So it is not that the crackers are produced 1 week before Diwali. Crackers are produced throughout the year, and they are stored and kept for a sale for those 10 days of Diwali. So a product can be inventory. Similarly, an automobile which is there is being produced is not delivered within the next day. It goes through a various process up to the dealer. It is there in the dealer showroom. Somebody decides to come and have a look and then buy, and then the product is sold. Whereas in a fast food joint, he doesn't make and keep. You're not going to, it's like you want a pizza. He doesn't make the pizza in the morning and then delivers it to you in the evening. When you say a delivery, let us say within 30 minutes or 20 minutes, he's producing it for the first 10 minutes, and then the next 10 minutes is a delivery, by which the product reaches you. So there is no inventory of the product which is there. Inventory of the materials may be there, but not of the final product which is there. So the services cannot be inventoried. So above applies to a pure service, like let's say a dosa joint. From the customer point of view, the end product is perishable and needs to be consumed immediately. You don't want a dosa or a pizza which has been there. Of course, you won't mind buying one and keeping it in the fridge and then having it the next day. But then you don't want the person giving you to give you yesterday's dosa, right, or a pizza, right? So, but whereas the raw material can be inventory. The pizza base or a dosa batter can be inventory. But when 10 people ask for dosa, you will get. I don't know. You miss since most of you are either from Gujarat and Andhra. Of course, the thing is, I always I'm quite in awe of some of these joints, and especially in Bangalore. If you have traveled to Bangalore, you have this. We call it as a darshini joints, which from morning 7 o'clock to night 10:30, they are constantly giving out. They have one of the largest menus, the thing, right from idli dosa, idli vada dosa to gobi Manchurian to the Chinese dishes to roti, sabji, all everything, anything, and charts, and throughout the
Especially
day.
Bangalore and Mysore.
Yeah, Bangalore, Mysore. I know. The thing is, you should see the efficiency with which you order, and within 5 minutes you have the thing hot, ready, made, and the kitchen works, clockwork, and it's transparent, open kitchen. You can see what's happening. Now, that kind of a level of service which you have to get, only then customers come in, and it's amazing to see how they work. And at least about 40-50 customers at any given point of time will be there throughout the day, minimum in those places. Okay, so that is the service. What happens, the realization of service which cannot be inventoried. That's extremely important. In any operations, what is important is to understand the entire operations from the beginning to the end. Especially a person from the software background, flow charting, the very first thing what you do when you have something to fill up is that you start with an input, and then you draw the flow chart with a decision box and yes, no, and all that kind of thing. And then the stop at the end, which is the finish there. And then you start writing the software for it, Similarly, for any operations, you need to have, the best way to define processes is to write a simple form or chart like this, a process flow chart, we call it, See, this is a process flow diagram or a chart for passport application processing. Just some process which is there. This can vary from place to, place to place, but then depending on the service what you are providing, see, right now passport places, at least I know in South, they are being handled by TCS on the front end, and only the final verification of that is handled by the passport office. The entire thing is handled by TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, through, but then they have a clockwork mechanism. They guarantee you that within 30 minutes you are out, and within 24 hours your passport is delivered. That's the level of service which is there today. I know how difficult it was to get passports during our time, is the thing. But everything, and even most of the thing starts from an online application first. You do most of the work yourself, verify, and then when you go there. Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, please.
सर आपकी स्क्रीन नहीं दिखा रही.
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखाई दे रहे. What about, is it okay? Visible?
Yeah, so it's visible to us. Yes, it's visible to me.
Krishna, you what about you? What you are having a what kind of a bandwidth you are having in terms of Wi-Fi?
Internet connect.
Yeah, sometimes the quality of the internet also matters. You do one thing. You can if your quality of internet is poor, your
okay, sir. कोई बात नहीं.
Video you switch off, keep the audio on. See, I'm on a fiber connection, so mine is 150 Mbps connection, fiber. So I have no problem. That's why I can afford to have a background also, with the Young India background is also there. So it accommodates even that. Okay, so it may be due to the bandwidth issue. But if you are able to hear, are you able to hear? Yeah, you can show a visual sign. Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay. So what is important in operations is to make this process flow chart or process flow diagram. This makes it that you understand the process and what comes and what are the stages in the process, what are all the parallel input which come in, what are all the checks. Of course, here is used only a box, but whereas in actual flow chart you use the parallelogram and all that kind of thing, in the typical thing. So any flowchart software will give you all those different boxes, different types of boxes, but you can use these simple things like this here. Okay, this is the first point in defining the process. So in manufacturing services, the difference and similarities, which we already talked about, there is a physical product where there is an intangible perishable product. Output can be inventoried, output cannot be inventoried. Low customer contact, because as you say, when a person is making a mobile phone, he doesn't know whether Titi is going to use that phone, right? He doesn't know, the person doesn't know. Whereas when you're ordering a pizza, they know exactly well that either you or your household person is going to consume it, So from low customer contact to a high customer contact, a long response time to a short response time, regional, national, international markets versus local markets, large facilities to relatively small facilities, capital intensive and more labor intensive in service organization. Quality can be easy. In service organizations, quality is not easily measured. So one of the major things in service organization is measure is customer satisfaction. Ultimately, that's why they keep asking you for feedback, on many of the attributes. So that is how they gauge the kind of quality. Similarities, that is concerned about quality, productivity, and timely response to its customers. Basically, in operations, you need to understand 4 things. If I have to keep the 4 fingers: quality, cost, delivery, service. Q, C, D, S. Keep that in mind always. In whatever you do when it comes to operations, things relates to quality, it relates to cost, because everything is at a cost, right? You can provide excellent quality at a very high cost, which a customer cannot afford to pay. All car manufacturers need not be BMWs, at least, Maruti can produce, there is a customer segment for everything, and the customer is only looking at quality in that bracket, and he doesn't expect a BMW quality from a Maruti 800, right? But definitely Maruti 800 will compare the quality with Eon or any of the, Tata Nano or any of those cars, right? So quality, cost, again, of course, who can give the cheapest within that? Delivery, you can give a product, make a best product, but if it is not available when the customer needs it, it has no meaning. And service, before and after sales service. These are the 4 key ingredients of any operations management: QCDS, quality, cost, delivery, service. Okay. Again, many books will not give you in this form, so that's why I said keep that in mind, and that is what it is. Must make choices about capacity, location, layout, which is very important. Like in case of retail, they say, what is the most important thing? It is location, location, and location. Taking from that, which is that Vidya Balan movie, she says, something about entertainment, and entertainment, when it comes to movies. It is location, location, and location when it comes to retail, obviously, So has suppliers to deal with, in both cases, has to plan its operations, schedules, and resources, balance capacity with demand by a careful choice of resources. You see, you may have, you can't have too much of excess capacity because your overheads will be very high. You'll be servicing fixed cost on high overheads while delivering very low capacity. Or if you do not deliver, that means your capacity is not sufficient, you lose out on the market. See, so you have to balance between capacity and demand. that's the biggest challenge in operations, has to make an estimate of demand. Estimate of demand as you go by. It could be a seasonal demand. It could be an organical growth of your product. It can be a demand generated by your marketing and your innovative product. Could be anything, but you need to have a good estimation of the demand. Key functional areas in an organization, there is finance. Operations is in the middle. If you see here, supporting operations, the very first thing is most important is the marketing. Marketing and operations are, I would say, they're the two main functional areas which run. It's like the two, if you have to say the car having four wheels, the front two wheels are the marketing and operations. Reason behind it is the marketing is the one finally make sure that the product reaches the customer, and operations is ensuring that the product is realized by the for delivery to the customer. The support functions are the human resources and finance. Of course, without finance it cannot run, and without the proper manpower, the operations cannot run. So operations is being supported by all these three, and these are the key functions. Linkages with other functions. There are, if you see that there are different layers to the operations. There is a customer layer. There is an ultimate customer in many product, which is, let us say, a car, which is there. You are the ultimate customer. You don't go and buy it from Maruti. They have their dealers and retailers. Like in case of FMCGs, then they have the retail outlet, then they have the wholesaler, then they have depots, and all that kind of thing, stockists. Then you have a core operations layer, which consists of the location, the factory layout, the fabrication, machining, etc., assembly, testing, and everything. Then you have the operations support layer, which in the background consists of the marketing, which gives to the customer layer, and the maintenance, which supports the operations, the quality, which ensures that right from the input raw material to the process to finished goods are ensured. Then there is a costing, which accounts, which keeps track of costing. Then the planning, tooling, materials, IT or the systems, design services, industrial engineering, etc. A layer of innovation, which happens due to, by the R&D in an organization. Of course, you may not have a formal R&D in an organization. Some big organizations do have, pharma companies do have, some of the big manufacturers do have, but even in smaller organizations, there can be an R&D in terms of somebody doing, the work, or everybody could contribute towards the innovation in an organization. And then the most important of all is the supplier. Any organization, any operations has to have a support system in the form of supplying materials, consumables, components, sub-assemblies to the operations support layer, right? And other service providers, like it could be, electricity, water, gases. There are so many things which consume different, like oxygen, argon, all that kind of thing, so petroleum, which is needed, all that kind of. So these are the linkages with the other functions in the organization. So if you have a systems perspective of organization, there is an input. As I said, everything starts with an input. There is a process, and then there is an output. input, process, output. That's how you see operations as. There's an input, then the input can be in the form of labor, that is manpower. It could be in the form of material. Material can be raw materials, components, consumables, utilities, sub-assemblies. Capital, which is needed like in the form of machinery, computers, all that, which forms the capital. There is a processing layer which starts with designing of the process and the product. There is an operations planning and control. Then there is a materials and capacity planning, because it is like making how many tawas do you have to produce dosas, kind of that's capacity planning. Then purchasing and inventory control to deal with constant supply of materials for ensure that the processes continue to give output. Then of course, together they give you the required output of goods and services. Yes. Now there is a feedback mechanism which always works. That feedback in that form of a process improvement, feedback in the form of maintenance management of the facility, which is there, and there is a quality management, because it is being constantly monitored, so that before something goes wrong, that things are kept up in ship shape, as we say. So this is a systems perspective of the organization. It works in an environment of forecasting, which is always happening. Forecasting usually is not a daily process. It could be usually a yearly process, but many organizations would like to do it quarterly or half yearly also. So the functions in operations are design of operations, operational control. Design of operations, you have product design, process design, quality management, location and layouts, facilities, and capacity planning. In operations control, you have forecasting, production planning and control, supply chain management, maintenance management, continuous improvement of operations. All of these as chapters will be doing one after the, during this process. Design issues in operations management lay down the overall constraints under which the operation system functions. They are strategic in nature and involve top management. Design of facility, design of the capacity which is there. These all require huge capital requirements. And where to put up the plant? Is it nearer to the availability of key resources? Like I said, I was talking to you about the semiconductor plant which is coming up in Mysore. It is not an emotional decision. Suddenly somebody sitting in Himalayas cannot say that I want this facility there. Where is the water? As simple as you can't transport a million liters per day of water to the Himalayas, although it could be in the origin, or let's say in Gujarat, I can't put it in, let's say in Kutch district of Gujarat, a semiconductor plant, just because you want it there. So it's you need to work on realities, and that is where the management decisions come into the picture. Operational control issues focuses on optimizing the use of available resources in the short term while delivering goods and services as per plan, and taking tactical, repetitive, and routine decisions at both the middle and lower level of management. Okay, now I'll just skip this because this is of general in nature. Okay, I will skip this. Now, this is what is the key thing, what we will be saying, that how do we organize our learning of operations management? And that is what is there in this figure. We'll be discussing all this one after the other. So one is understanding operations. That is, if you see, there are 4 boxes. Designing operations is a second layer. Planning and control of operations is a third layer. Operations and the value chain, and of course there is a small box here, which talks about improving operations. Okay. Now, in each of these, if you see, understanding operations, we are talking like today, or the introductory thing. Then there is a strategy involved in operations strategy. They come under understanding operations. In designing operations, there is a process design, there is a product development, TQM, statistical quality control. Under TQM, there is a statistical quality control, facilities location, facilities layout, there is plant layout or a facilities layout. Then there is a capacity planning. Now, all these feed into the planning and control of operations by forecasting. Starts with the demand forecasting and aggregate production planning. We'll be talking about that. Resources planning, scheduling. Of course, just-in-time manufacturing is one of the tools used, mostly a Japanese terminology. It's called just-in-time. A project management, which is different from regular day-to-day management. In whenever you have a particular thing to do in a given time, that's called a project, which is temporary in nature. Then in the operations and the value chain, you have the supply chain management. We have purchasing and supply management and inventory planning and management. Now, all these three come under one umbrella. Today, the biggest, most often heard word you'll see is the supply chain management. Why is it important? It is not only the person who supplies raw materials to you is important. The person who gets the materials to make his raw material or component is also equally important. If that stops, then this guy is not able to supply it. So the entire chain through which the material is able to reach you for production, that is important, and that is why we use the word supply chain. Then support functions are maintenance management and continuous improvement of processes within the organization. This keeps the organization alive. Continuous improvement is like up daily kasrat karte hai na, or you do something to keep yourself fit. Just if you keep on eating and don't do anything, obviously you will grow fat, you will fall ill and other things. So continuous improvement is like you are taking your daily walk and keeping yourself fit and energetic throughout the day. So organizations need to be continuously fit, and that is why continuous improvement of processes will take place. Also, of course, most of you being engineers, the entropy in thermodynamics. It only can get worse and worse, unless you are able to control that. So you need to have a continuous improvement and audit of processes. So we saw that all this, that operations management is a systematic approach to address all issues pertaining to the transformation process that converts inputs to useful output. India is emerging as an important manufacturing base, and it will be more and more so now. In fact, I wish that we do 10 times more than what we are doing now in coming to manufacturing. That's the only way for us not to be slaves to the world. Today, both me and my wife, we see that whenever you buy anything, is it made in China? China mein banta hai to nahi mat kharido. Right? At least I don't mind if it's in Vietnam or Malaysia or even Turkey for that matter, but not from China. Preferably, of course, if it is Indian. Proudly, like today, they say, proudly made in India. Correct? So that is what we should create. We should create products proudly made in India. So from an operations perspective, the notion of pure product and pure service are only two ends of the spectrum. So yeah, we saw all this. Some of the challenges faced in operations include low productivity and longer lead time, quality management, inability to relate the system to market and customer, and promoting a culture of learning. These are the major challenges in operations. We handle it by different ways, and during this course of next couple of months or 3 months, I don't know how long it is, you learn a lot from, I wouldn't say learn, let's discuss and realize what those problems are there and how to make better systems in operations in whatever you do. Okay, so this is the sum and substance of the introduction to operations. Sometimes, people say that you want a 5 minutes break, you can take a 5 minutes break. Time out before I turn to the next topic. Okay, it could be a bio break, it could be of course, chai bana ke pine mein time lagta hai, but otherwise, if you got something ready-made, you can bring it onto your table, right? Okay, mera to chai ban gaya hai, wo main leke aaunga. Huh? Okay, I don't mind. So 5 minutes break where I'll give you 7:28 on my clock, 7:35 we meet again. Keep your cameras and things on.
Sure.
Don't shut off. Okay, right. 5 to 6 minutes break. Yes, 7:35 on my watch. Those of you who have come, you can switch on your. Yes, Divyang sir. देखो हमारा भी चाय आ गया. I have a. I also found one packet of Baruch. See here, Baruch peanuts.
In Gujarat, every home having a special jar for this all the days, 365 days. If jar empty, it will be filled again with this groundnuts and this chana.
चना नहीं ये मिलता है इधर मिलता है ये
हाँ.
जबसन्स बोल का है उधर भरूच का ही है ये.
अच्छा.
ये लोकल मार्केट में मिलता है.
ओके ओके.
दिस इज एक्चुअली इधर लिखा है ओरिजिनल भरूच पीनट्स मेड इन भरूच. ये भरूच का ही है.
करेक्ट करेक्ट.
हम तो पैकेट लेके रखता है इधर.
हाँ.
ये नींबू पुदीना है. डिफरेंट फ्लेवर्स आर आल्सो देयर, you know.
One glass of water and one muthi, one muthi sing chana. That is enough for the day.
Yeah, but आप गुड़ भी लेते हैं ना. गुड़ भी लेते हैं ना.
हाँ, गुड़ is yes.
Actually, my wife, she speaks fluent Gujarati.
Oh, great.
Wow.
We are from South, but she speaks fluent Gujarati. Yeah.
How come, sir?
नहीं वो मेरा फादर इन लॉ का एक फैक्ट्री था उधर कच्छ में गांधीधाम में.
अच्छा.
Okay.
और we are both of us from Mumbai. She was in a Gujarati area. Actually, her entire childhood was in Gujarati area.
Malad.
नहीं उधर सांता क्रूज में ईस्ट में near Santa Cruz station there is one Chandan Mahal.
Okay.
It's a big gated community. उसमें 300 family है उसमें.
Oh.
उसमें actually she was the only South Indian and all Gujaratis. So she actually for a long time she thought that she is Gujarati, you know, because she. And Bombay में तो you know you learn Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati तो आ जाता है कभी.
Very short. In a short time.
All business language is only Gujarati in any case.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. So we'll continue.
Yes,
the second portion will take only about half an hour because I took a lot of time because this was supposed to have been done yesterday. But madam had some problems with her connectivity issues. So when she requested, I said, I will set the stage for the course, you know, because this sets a foundational thing. Although a lot of things may be repetitive, but ये क्या है in any learning is like, you know, Ved part, no? You continuously keep reading, continuously you keep listening, you know, then something will sit in your mind, you know, and when you actually want something to be done, वो तभी याद आता है. It is not necessary that you should remember and write an examination and pass and all that. That is not the issue. More about learning is that the more you listen, the more you try to understand, connect with what your own personal experiences. And it may not be useful immediately, but somewhere when it is actually needed, then it comes to your mind. Yeah, ye abhi wo padha tha, wo suna tha tabhi, you know, now I can apply that here, you know, kind of thing. So that is what is the importance in learning. So we'll come to the second part of productivity. What is thing, you know? See, as we said, you know, when it comes to operations, it is important how efficient the operations are done. Before I get into that, when you talk about management, you see, these are some things which you won't find in books. I'm just telling you because I am myself an MBA from IIM, and I have practiced management from the last 40, 50 years. Easier way to understand management is always that there are only two things involved in management: effectiveness and efficiency. When you talk about effectiveness, it is about, are you doing the right thing? Of course, this is common for even in your own life. Once you have decided that this is the right thing to do, then comes how well you do what you have decided to do, which is efficiency. Efficiency is using the right processes, right technology, right equipment, doing it with the least resources of materials, manpower, and time. All these together determine the efficiency of the operation. And like in software, you're talking about how much time it takes, nanoseconds or whatever it is, from input to output, number one, right? Correct. How many iterations it can, how much of hits it can take. So many things you use, for determining the efficiency. So effectiveness and efficiency, these are the two major things which you have to understand when it comes to management. And in operations management, because you have already decided in most of the cases what to do and how to do it, next comes the question is how well you will do what you have decided to do. And that is productivity. So productivity, as we see, is the output of any production process. Production does not mean that a physical production. It is what we can say is a realization of the output or realization of a product. Product which can be physical or not, service. So productivity is the output of any production process per unit of output. As we all know, that there is nothing like a perpetual motion machine, in the sense that nothing can convert 100% of the input to 100% of output. There will always be a wastage. There will be a byproduct. There will be some heat and other things generated. So the efficiency comes down. So how do you ensure that it is like, if you've heard of what is called as a superconductor? What is a superconductor? That there is no loss of in the transmission. Correct. When does the superconductivity happens? When it is in minus 273 degrees Kelvin, right? But then to maintain something at minus 273 degrees, will need a lot of input, correct? So obviously it is still not 100% productivity, because you need something. Only thing is the input goes to output without any loss. So there is a superconduction. But there is an element of maintaining that superconductivity. So similarly, like in any process, there is a loss. And the loss due to, if the loss is natural, then there is no problem. But if the loss is due to mismanagement, then there is a problem. And that is where we as operations managers come in. Again, losses, or we also call wastages. Right. In Japanese terminology, they call it wastages. Wastages means in the sense that it is not, they are inherent in a process. Now, आप समझो कि एक मूर्ति बनाना है, just like सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल का मूर्ति बना है ना, और in Hyderabad, Ramanujacharya's murti happened recently, right? Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Now, To make that, obviously somebody is taking a big slab of thing, or addition of various materials into that and all that kind of thing. The most efficient way of removing of material or putting of material will finally determine how well the product is made and how soon the product is made and what is the quality of product which is made. Correct. That again ultimately is what is productivity. If you remove all the wastages, then the resultant good is the best in quality and also most productive in the operations, has been produced most productively. So productivity is the output of any production process per unit of input. To increase productivity means to produce more with less. In factories and corporations, productivity is a measure of the ability to create goods and services from a given amount of labor, capital, materials, land, resources, knowledge, time, or any combination of those. Like, let us say, in Bombay, we have these schools are running in shift systems. No? Whereas you won't hear of that in, like, let us say, in smaller towns like Mysore or Bharuch and all that, no? Correct. Whereas Bombay, it is there, at least minimum, every school runs on at least 2 shifts. Morning shift, afternoon shift and all that. Why? Because they have, their resources are limited in terms of building and thing, location. They cannot, otherwise they have to go somewhere where they won't get students. Demand is there within around the school area only. More people want to get in there. So what do? They make the premises more productive. Factories, similarly, there are some processes which need to be done 365 days, 24/7, like production of steel, production of cement, production of electricity. You know, you cannot stop and start. But many other processes, you can produce single shift, you can produce 2 shifts, you can produce 3 shifts. Right. When you want to produce more using the same resources, then you will have to use time effectively. Similarly, if you have to use labor effectively, you need to have people who can do multiple jobs. If, let us say, if a person can do only one job, and if there are 10 processes in the thing, for each process you need one specialized person, then you will find that you need more manpower. Suppose if one person can handle more jobs, so that his time is used effectively, his resources are used, his training is used effectively, his expertise is used, then you have effective use of the labor resources. Similarly, machineries, is it working throughout the shift, or is it working only for, let us say, 2 hours out of 8 hours? Then the machinery is not being utilized properly. So it is not productive. Again, all the other resources which goes into, suppose it is a water, is any of the other supplies which uses. The most effective usage of all the resources will make it, the production process, productive. Right. That is the job of an operations manager, to ensure that all the resources are used to the optimum maximum. Maximum means you cannot say that, nobody, unlike only a machine can operate 24/7, but man needs a regular, rest, this thing, all that. Within that, what is the maximum utilization? It is there. It is also, I am of the considered opinion, and which is also the management, that it is the job of the management to ensure that it provides the necessary resources for the manpower to utilize their time and their expertise most efficiently. It is a management's job. And that is why it becomes more important for you as an operations manager to understand the manpower, train them, and ensure that they are given the job for the full time in which they are being utilized. Output per unit of input is employed, increased productivity on the part of capital and labor. Measurement of productivity. Productivity can be measured the amount of output per unit of input. In a factory, it might be measured based on the number of hours it takes to produce a good. Number of hours also means what we call as a cycle time. In terms of what is a production cycle. Can it be reduced? Can more goods be produced within the same time? Can parallel processes can be done? What are all the bottlenecks in the production? And how do you get more, how to remove those bottlenecks? These are the things which we talk when we talk about productivity. In the service industry, it might be measured based on the income generated by an employee divided by his salary. Like Anka, you're talking about the man-hour cost. It's very simplest. In service industry, it's very simple. Not so easy in manufacturing. Yeah. Definition and equation: productivity is the ratio of the output and input in any organization. Output upon input is productivity. Obviously, you have the emphasis will be to increase output or decrease input or do both. Right. Output is in the form of product quantity and input is in the form of resources. The resources can be in the form of land, salaries to be paid, amount for the material which is used and spent in infrastructure. Again, meaning, power, water, gases, whatever you use, in production. Examples: in case A, 10 products are made by spending 1,000 rupees, and in case B, 15 products are made by spending 2,000 rupees. So obviously, in case A, it is 10 upon 1,000, it is 15 upon 2,000. So obviously, A is more productive than B. Although, of course, number of items produced is more, but it is using more resources to produce the same thing. Right. This, there are, of course, these are only academic interest, but anyway, to understand, you can say it's a partial productivity or total productivity. When you say partial productivity, it means the productivity in terms of a single input, like it could be manpower input, or it could be the, let's say, where electricity is important, let us say output per unit of power, or if water is most important, output per gallon of water, or if it could be, productivity can be measured in many ways, ultimately. So that is the thing. That is all partial productivity. Total productivity is taking all the inputs into together and having certain weightages put for each one of them, and then comparing it with the output. Okay, so that is what is that. So the method of calculating productivity considering all the resources, it's called total productivity. These are academic interest again. It is a systematic and qualitative approach to compete in quality, price, and time. Total productivity provides a systematic framework and structure in an organization. So we have no option but to keep increasing productivity for anything to ensure that you are remain profitable, because there is a pressure in the market to reduce prices. There is a pressure from the resources to increase their costs, whether it is manpower or material. And so there is a constant tussle between the two. And this can be won only when you are winning the game in productivity. That is where you find that, even technologies move from country to country. If you have seen, the production moves from country to country. If once a country is no longer competent or competitive in doing something, it moves to some other place. That's why we say, even in software, we can only be saying that, we are productive as long as we are able to give our outsourcing at a certain cost. I do not know, Anka, if you have seen a movie called Outsourced. There is a movie called Outsourced, where in the final scene, the person says that, he's actually a foreigner who is managing the Indian operations. And in the final scene, of course, it's a masala movie with all the usual things. But in the final scene, he says, now I am going to China or someplace, out different. I've been transferred. Meaning that you are no longer competitive. Now I am moving to another place which is more competitive. See, in resources, there is no emotion attached. You see, money has no emotions. If you see, the only word when it comes to money is that, it used to be prudent. There are very few people like me who say, I won't buy Chinese, kind of thing. I went and bought a, the pulse oximeter, which is made in India. I know that 90% of it is coming imported, but finally at least 10% is value added in India at double the price of what was available in the market. But people like me are a minority, Most of them will still see that, kitna 1000 mein milta hai ki 900 mein milta hai. So I pay 2000 rupees for it. वो BPL का brand था. Anyway, now I become a director. Before that, I was not a director in BPL, but still I said made in India, बोल के लिया. But people don't attach so much of emotions when it comes to money. Even when you're doing a Amazon purchase, you'll see what? First you will see the price, no? Correct. You'll see the price, then look at the quality and delivery. Then you will say, okay, all things remaining the same, let us see where it is being manufactured and many other things. So this is the same thing happens when it comes to productivity across the world. US only when Donald Trump was there, he made sure that a lot of manufacturing comes back to the US. Otherwise, they were merely using China. Even now, China is the manufacturer for the world because their system of manufacture itself is different. There's a communist country, right? But whereas here in India and all that, we have to follow the labor laws. You can't just have the kind of things. And we have limitations, but it is good. But at least we are democratic to that extent, And we are fair to whatever is being produced. But with the only other way to compete is in productivity, in producing more with the same input. And that is where we can be. So our constant quest will always be to improve productivity. Biggest challenge, of course, in our country, as I told you earlier, logistics is the biggest problem in our country. The time taken is very big. The cost of thing, because our petrol costs are high. We know that. We can't bring it down because we have a legacy issues, right? We owe so much of money to so many people across the world, and then that has to be cleared. So we are paying for it. So there are many issues, but still. So the logics, the only way to make it thing is if you are able to do it in the quicker time. Now ministry is talking within 12 hours from Bombay to Delhi, that kind of thing. So if those things happen, then the cost will come down also along with that when the time value of money is used better. So productivity benefits is increase in income, profitability, lowering of running costs, which is the major thing for operational costs, maximizing the use of all the company's resources, including land, equipment, machinery, factory workers, etc., gaining a greater share of the market, and cash flow is the biggest advantage in when you're having productivity. Like if you see, we talked about just in time. Why are I've seen it in operation in Japan. I worked for a month in a company. Of course, I worked for a very short while, but I went there only to see how the Japanese culture is there, to work. 1 महीना काम किया वो टोक्यो में एक कंपनी में, just to understand the culture, how they work. It's amazing, we cannot even think of that kind of way. Least amount of manpower, the way they work like a clockwork from morning to evening, including cleaning the premises. Sham ko 6 baje, when they are leaving, the last 10 minutes are used in cleaning up the entire facility so that next day morning when they come, it is neat and clean. हम लोग इधर सब गंदा छोड़ के फिर सुबह when they come, first half an hour is taking up in cleaning up the premises before you start. See, starting is more important. So it's again, all these are cultural issues, Cultural issues, that is very, very important. I personally believe that when you leave a place, it should be clean. So that when you start, it should be start with clean. But of course, as I said, these are. Then we have, see, quality and productivity are synonymous. This is something which we need to understand. For a very long time, we thought that that you can, for quality, you have to, when you talk about quality, to produce quality, the production will come down. Productivity will suffer. Because you are putting more effort and emphasis on trying to make it very good. Personally, I have found in my experience in manufacturing that, and I've taught quality for more than 20 years in various management colleges also. I've seen the Japanese working and use Japanese systems. The more emphasis you do on quality and quality processes, which we will talk at length when we do total quality management, you will find that the productivity automatically increases. One of the principles of quality is produce, make it right the first time, every time. You see, initially, when you try to be perfect in doing any job, any simplest job which you can take, it may take time, but then second time it will become, the time required is less, and then it becomes a habit. And then you'll find that your emphasis will be to make sure that you don't make a mistake. You make it perfect without having to do any rework on the job. Now, if this philosophy is ingrained in all the processes across the organization, you'll find that the productivity improves tremendously, leaps and bounds. When I started in 83, 84 and all that production, I used to have about 20% wastages in my factory. It came down to 7%. And when I used statistical process control, used Japanese techniques, it came down to less than 1%. Imagine the savings in terms of cost, in terms of increase in productivity. I've seen it happen in my own. I can only say that quality and productivity. In fact, the very first productivity council in India, you know where it was? Can you say, Divya? The productivity council, the very first productivity council in India. Was in Baroda. Productivity, even today, if you see, Baroda is the first center, Vadodara, of course, you call it Vadodara now. It was a Baroda Council, which was the first productivity council. You know, just like the Indian Statistical Institute started in Calcutta, Productivity Council started in Baroda. But both are synonymous, actually. What I'm trying to say is, well, here the emphasis was from productivity to quality. There it was a quality to productivity. And that's why I put that important sign, both are the same here, one means the other. Which brings us to quality, not as the individual management of quality of the product or processes, but a total quality management of the total organization. It's an approach to seek to improve quality and performance which will meet customer expectation. It starts from the gate of the organization to the end product which goes out as a product. TQM looks for the overall quality measures used by a company. Okay, practicing TQM gives you ability to be more competitive, increase market share, cost reduction, etc., simplified processes, improved communications, etc. Okay. Now there are various techniques of quality. This is not to give you a detail, because quality is synonymous with productivity. Different techniques, tools and techniques of quality management. One of them is a Japanese. Most of them arises out of the Japanese quality system. They use a word called Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement, continual improvement actually. It is, but we call it continuous improvement. Okay, is a Japanese word meaning gradual and orderly continuous improvement. The Kaizen business strategy involves everyone in an organization working together to make improvements without large capital investments. Small improvements. Every day you look at how to make things better, Either say udhar rakho, all small things, not very big things, which doesn't require capital. Then it makes everybody to think towards improvements, and that together overall creates a sense of thing. You also use a word called Pokayoke, which actually means mistake proofing, or we also call it as fool proofing. Simple method to prevent defects from occurring from your business processes. In fact, in earlier, if we used to have as electrical engineers, if there is a DC machine, plus minus terminal reverse kiya to fuse ud jayega. No, something used to happen. But then they found a method that usko ye terminal ko bada karo, ye terminal ko chota karo. Now you can't replace one terminal with the other, right? Simple technique. Itna dimag nahi chalan, but even if you try to put it on that, it won't go. So today's batteries, if you see in a UPS, the terminals are not the same, Ek dusra mein nahi jayega. So that is called foolproofing. Just as, of course, your USB B type, there is only one way it can go. But now uniformly it has become C type, you can put both ways. Right. That is again foolproofing. Earlier you have to put only one way. No. If incidentally, Europe is now saying that we don't even want Apple or Android and all the different things. All chargers must have a single connector. They are making it mandatory, so that you can't have a lightning cable for a Apple and some cable as a B type, C type, all those different. Now I carry a bag full of electronics, like this everywhere I go, because full of connectors and kisme idhar jata hai, and then to add to that we have European plug, then Indian plug, and then Malaysian plug, all that. Standardization and making it foolproofing. That is the biggest thing we know. No. Housekeeping is the biggest thing, which of course we have learned, and then it is very important. A systematic approach in keeping a better workplace. Things are very simple. The Japanese use a 5S as a techniques. S, of course, there are corresponding English words. They are basically means that keeping it tidy, orderly. This is a Japanese word, sairi, meaning tidy, tidiness. The most important thing, even in your own home, the place where you work, throw out all rubbish and unrelated material. First thing, either nahi chahiye or not read it. Just, like I used to tell my son, chocolate ka ke wo chocolate wrapper wo table mein rahega. Right? What do you do with the chocolate wrapper? It's a useless thing. First thing you take it and put it in the dustbin. Right? Unnecessarily, when you're working, that will come and then fly onto your this thing. Things happen without requiring. Unrelated material to remove from the workplace. First thing. Orderliness. A place for everything and everything in its place. That is the most important thing. Or even if you say that this is in your right hand, this thing, I've seen one, in India, when there's a lineman working, you need 2-3 people, to help him. In Japan, I've seen there is only one person working. Uska, throughout his body, he's got all kinds of tools, He doesn't need any help. He will climb. You won't ask, pakad feko hamara, one fellow has to throw a screwdriver, this thing, and that thing will not be proper, the different sizes. They have everything available at the right place. It is like a blind man taking out something, without orderliness, cleanliness, standardization. As far as possible, don't use too many different types. Everything is 3 mm, 5 mm. Allen key, it should be everything the same. You should try to minimize variety and discipline. So these are the 5 S methods of cleanliness. Of course, in English, the same words they use as sort, stabilize, shine, standardize, and sustain. So the 5S. Japanese use, for them 5S is the most important thing. You start with 5S and then talk about everything else. The workplace must be absolutely clean, disciplined, standard, everything. Another improvement in productivity, this is actually by the Sony Corporation, which the person found out, was people take too much time when there is a change in a line or anything like that, After all, you don't produce a standard one size or one thing throughout the day. There needs to be product mix and changes which are happening in any production. Just like I was telling you in case of the Udupi kitchen in Bangalore, how they produce within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, variety of dishes, because they are able to change over from one to another within a very short time. That changeover which happens using the same facility, same resources, that is what is called as a single minute exchange of dice. As SMED is actually, it is single minute exchange of dice. It's given a little differently here. That is what the Sony Corporation in their thing, they found that this is something is extremely important. Even in my own manufacturing, I used to produce, our variety of production is extremely high. So we have used this technology to ensure that we normally produce 5-10 varieties. We could produce about 50 varieties on a single given day with minimum wastage changeover from one to other, keeping the productivity the same. So a single minute exchange of dice is the approach to reduce the output and quality losses due to changeovers. And changeovers are needed in many systems, services, all that, The methods, strength, and systems approach. Even in banks, if you see, you go for every single thing, there is a different form, kind of thing. Nowadays, they don't even print forms, they take it from the software and then print it on the printer and give it to you. Why do you need to keep stock of so much forms? When you want that particular form is not available. Yes, sir. Sorry, Divyang sir. Yeah. You have a question. Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, Divyang.
Sir, I have one meeting. So I have to leave, sir.
Yeah, sure. We are almost finishing.
And internet is also something issues.
No problem. No problem. No problem. We are almost finishing. Yeah. This was one. Then Six Sigma.
Okay,
give me 2 minutes. I'll finish off then. Six Sigma
okay, sir.
was Six Sigma is a methodology found out by the Motorola. See, basically what happens is the difference between Americans and the Japanese is Japanese use a lot of philosophy in what they talk. Americans do not understand philosophy. For them, everything has to be black and white. So they've thought that for improving quality, unless they are able to measure every small thing, they'll not be able to improve quality. So Motorola Corporation in US, they came up with this technology called technique, rather I would say, called Six Sigma, which is nothing but to ensuring that each process is very strictly controlled to Six Sigma level. Yeah, these are all the change agents in that. Then business process reengineering was a technology used when you are radically changing the processes. Today, of course, it is not needed because everybody understands the new way of doing things. And this is the last slide again. These are the constraints and problems used in productivity due to governmental regulation. Things are getting much simpler. Registrations and approvals, the labor laws, they're all lot simplified. Management limitations and employee related issues. And this is where we need to give maximum emphasis. These are some of the case studies. Anyway, I'll be sending you this one. You can go through it. In a PDF format, I'll send you. Okay. These are some of the good diagrams you see how to improve productivity. This is one corporation that they used to give this Sega traveler to go from one place to another. These are, this is one company where you're coming from the ground, first floor to ground floor. They have a slide, it's like Majama, they have a fun also, and then at the same time getting the thing. Productivity is increased when you have some music in the place, kind of thing. This we used to have, even 40, 50 years back, continuous music going on in the shop floor, kind of thing. And good workflow ambience of the things, In conclusion, the various ways of improving productivity that has to be constantly explored. It is a must to survive and prosper. So there is no substitute for this. You must improve productivity. Okay, so that is the end. So I didn't want you to lose out, Divyang, so that I was almost in the end, because I also keep track of time. We started at 6:15. I'm supposed to finish at 8:15. We started a few minutes late, so I'm finishing a few minutes late. That's all.
Correct.
Okay. So I hope you, I won't say enjoyed, but at least got some inputs today. Okay.
Yes.
So Titi Beta, any questions?
No, sir. So you said just put my standards more higher because of yes. So now I'm really looking forward to work in Tokyo and Japan, sir. So I really want to work there.
Okay, good. Yeah, because
so
my this thing is youngsters like you. Youngsters
yes,
like you are the are the future of this country.
Right, sir.
You must lead from the front. Yes.
Sir, one slide, there was a project management little bit appearance, but it was not connected to any activity, sir.
No. Project management is today. When you say project management, anything which has limited is done for only once, and from a limited, there is a start and an end, and within a certain time frame. That is called a project. Project does not mean that a road banata hai, wo sab bada project nahi. It could be a simple improvement project in an organization.
Okay.
Like I take up, I want to change. I want to make, let us say, device packing for this cup. Let's say, that's a project. Okay, wo ek time banata hai, bas itna hi. But for that, some people have to sit through some materials you have to use, somebody has to do some design and all that. Project is defined as something which has a start and an end. And then there is a process, there is a time, there is a cost involved. And there will be some processes. So that is a project, and management of projects will come under operations also, because in companies, not only that you do routine activities, you take up when employees or whatever come with ideas. अच्छा वो मीटिंग में बोलता है कि दिव्यांग comes up with some good idea, तो मैनेजर क्या बोलता है, हाँ आप ले लो ना इसको, आप you make it do it and show. No, this is not something which you do every day. It's a new job, something you are taken. So that is given to you as a project. Now, how to manage that as a project? That comes under project management. Software, it is mostly used because in most of the things in software is projects only. Routine, ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं है.
Sir, my net connection is not proper.
Huh?
My net connection is not proper.
Acha.
I heard some sentences, yes, and some not.
Acha. Okay, we will end that today. We'll meet up next week again. Okay.
Sure.
Next Saturday.
Yeah, next Saturday, Rekha ma'am will take. Sunday I'll normally take. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Right.
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anka. Thank you, Divyang. Thank you, Titi. Bye.